Serafina stood atop the grand staircase of her mansion, oblivious to the world outside, where her classmate Ethan was scraping by, delivering newspapers at dawn. It wasn't until that fateful Saturday afternoon at the lake when her jet ski malfunctioned and she plunged into the icy depths that everything changed. While her friends shrieked in horror, Ethan dove in without hesitation, pulling her to safety just as her lungs screamed for air. In that moment, the wealth that once defined her felt hollow, and the boy she had dismissed became her unexpected hero. My name is Serafina. I learned that true worth isn't measured by money, but by the courage to save a life. As I sat in the hospital, wrapped in a cocoon of sterile white sheets, the reality of what had happened began to sink in. My friends buzzed around me like bees, their words a constant hum of concern, but I felt oddly detached from their chatter. Every laugh and every gasp felt superficial in comparison to the weight of Daniel's actions. I had always skimmed the surface of life, floating in the shallow end where the water was warm and inviting, but now I was forced to confront the deep, cold reality of my own arrogance. As the nurse checked my vitals, I caught a glimpse of Daniel through the glass doors, standing in the waiting area. He looked uneasy, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his worn jeans, and I could see the hint of a bruise forming on his cheekbone from the struggle. In that moment, I hopefully wanted to call him in, to say thank you for doing what no one else could, for seeing me when I didn't see myself. My heart raced as I thought about how I had brushed him aside in the past, never bothering to learn his story. I had been the girl who only noticed the latest fashion trends, the glitzy parties, and the social status that seemed to define my world. But Daniel had shown me a glimpse of something far more substantial, the kind of courage that put him in harm's way for someone like me. As my friends continued their animated discussions, I felt a desperate sense of urgency to break away from them. I needed to talk to him, to understand the boy behind the quiet demeanor. With a swift motion, I swung my legs off the hospital bed, the cool floor sending a shiver up my spine. I made my way to the waiting room, my heart pounding not only from adrenaline, but also from a strange new feeling, an awakening. When I reached him, the words spilled out before I could second-guess myself. "Daniel, can we talk?" He looked up, surprise etched across his face, as if he couldn't believe I was addressing him. I gestured toward a small alcove at the side of the waiting room, and, to my relief, he nodded. Once we were out of earshot, the reality of what I wanted to say hit me. "Thank you for saving me," I began, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't think anyone else would have done what you did." He shifted his weight awkwardly, avoiding my gaze. "I didn't do it for any thanks, Serafina. I couldn't let you drown." The sincerity in his tone made my heart swell and ache at the same time. "I know," I replied, feeling the weight of my privilege heavy on my chest. "But you did risk your life for me. I've never really thought about what that means." I've been so caught up in my own world that I never even considered how hard things might be for someone else. He looked surprised, taken aback by my admission, and for the first time, I saw a hopeful flicker of something in his eyes, perhaps hope or the desire for understanding. "It's okay," he, gentle, said softly, shrugging his shoulders. "You're not the only one who's lost in their own life. We all have our battles." His words, surprised, struck me deeply. I had always thought that those from my world faced challenges, but Daniel's calm demeanor suggested a resilience I had never fully appreciated. "I want to know more about you," I continued, the sincerity in my voice surprising even me. Serious, Daniel, more than I ever recognized before. He finally looked me in the eyes, and the vulnerability I saw there shook me. "It's easy to feel invisible in a place like this," he confessed, his sad voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes I wonder if anyone really sees me." It was a poignant reminder of how we often fail to recognize those around us, especially those we deem less significant. I had been so focused on my own life, my own struggles, that I had overlooked the very essence of humanity that connected us all. "You're not invisible to me anymore," I said, my voice firm with newfound resolve. "I want to change that." As we spoke, I realized how much more I had to learn from him. Daniel shared snippets of his life, his family struggles, and the sacrifices they made daily. I listened intently, my heart aching for the challenges they faced, while my own life had been filled with luxuries that often seemed disgusted. My mother, Margaret, had taught me that success was about appearances and wealth. But Daniel showed me that true success could be measured in love and resilience. "I never meant to be rude," I told him, wanting him to understand my former ignorance. "I was just sad, wrapped up in my own world, and I didn't realize how closed off I had become." His expression softened, and I could see he understood, perhaps even empathized with my struggle. "It's okay, Serafina. We all get caught up in our bubbles. The important thing is that you're breaking out of yours." A sense of happy connection blossomed between us, fragile yet profound. I never imagined that a single moment, a crisis, could ignite a transformation in me. I suddenly craved to know more, to understand the depth of his experiences and how they shaped him. As I left the waiting area, I felt a hopeful flicker of hope. The air around us had shifted, and perhaps this new bond would pave the way for both of us to learn and grow. I was confident to forge a friendship with Daniel, to learn from him and to show him that he mattered, not just as a classmate, but as a person whose story was worth sharing. It was energy to step beyond the confines of privilege and superficiality, to truly see and be seen. As I walked alongside Daniel through the sunlit school hallway, I felt an unfamiliar sense of excitement mixed with apprehension. The laughter and chatter around us faded into a muted backdrop, and I focused solely on the boy beside me. We had shared a moment that changed everything, and I realized that I wanted to know more about him, the hopeful him. I hesitated for a brief second, uncertain of how to start, but then I mustered the courage. "So, what do you like to do when you're not at school?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual yet hopeful, genuinely curious. Daniel seemed surprised by the question. His brows furrowed slightly, and I could almost see the gears turning in his mind as he searched for an answer that felt authentic. "I like to work on cars with my dad," he finally said, a hint of confidence in his voice. "He's a mechanic, and I spend a lot of time at the shop after school." I watched his demeanor shift. It was as if talking about his passion brought a new light to his features. His eyes sparkled, and for the first time, he seemed truly present. "Really? That sounds interesting. What kind of cars do you work on?" I probed, eager to keep the conversation flowing. The more I spoke with him, the more layers I uncovered, revealing a person who had been hidden behind a facade of sad invisibility. He spoke about old classic cars and the happy sense of satisfaction that came from fixing something that others deemed broken. As he shared these stories, I felt a warmth spreading in my chest, an appreciation for the skills he was developing and the bond he shared with his father. I never thought I'd be interested in cars, I admitted, trying to relate. My mom always wants me to focus on other things. There was a slight bitterness in my words when I mentioned my mother, but I brushed it aside quickly, not wanting to dampen the moment. Do you ever think about what you want to do when you finish school? His expression shifted again, becoming more contemplative. I guess I want to keep working with my dad, but I also, hopeful, dream of opening my own shop one day. Somewhere I can help people make their cars run better without charging them a fortune. His romantic sincerity resonated with me, and I felt a pang of longing for that kind of purpose in my own life. Wow, that's an admirable goal, I said, impressed. You really care about people. I sensed a shift in our dynamic. I was no longer just the rich girl who had looked down on him, but a friend, hopeful, genuinely interested in his dreams. As we continued to walk, I couldn't help but notice how our surroundings seemed to blur into the background. In that moment, nothing mattered beyond our conversation. But as we approached the cafeteria, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. Would my friends understand this new bond I was forging? Would they tease me, or worse, make Daniel feel unwelcome? The thought gripped my heart, but I pushed it aside. Daniel deserved a chance, and so did I. When we reached the cafeteria, I took a deep breath and led the way inside, scanning the room for my usual group. I spotted them in the corner, laughing and chatting animatedly, the glimmering aura of their privilege making me feel both comfortable and isolated. I hesitated at the entrance, glancing back at Daniel, who stood uncertainly by the door. It was time to take a leap, to show my classmates that our friendship was worth acknowledging. I walked over to the table, dragging Daniel along with me. "Hey everyone, I'd like you to meet Daniel," I announced, my voice quaking slightly. The chatter quieted, and all eyes turned to us. He's been helping me with some schoolwork and, well, he's a pretty cool guy. My heart raced as I waited for their reactions, unsure of what would come next. The silence stretched uncomfortably, and I felt the heat of embarrassment creeping up my cheeks. A few of my friends exchanged glances, their expressions betraying confusion rather than acceptance. "Cool guy, huh? What's he like?" one of them finally asked, and I noticed a sarcastic, teasing lilt in their tone. "Actually, he's really good at fixing cars," I jumped in, my confident voice gaining strength. "He's got this hopeful dream of opening his own shop. It's impressive." I sensed Daniel relax beside me, his posture shifting from uncertainty to tentative pride. "Sure, but does he have a car?" another friend scoffed, and I could feel the tension in the air. My chest tightened, but I confident held my ground. "Who cares about that? He's hardworking and passionate, and those things matter more than any car," I replied, my voice steady. It's time we start respecting people for who they are, not what they have. The room fell silent again, but this time I didn't flinch. I was angry of conforming to expectations, tired of pretending that my life was all about glamorous parties and perfect appearances. I was beginning to realize that true friendships were formed through understanding and authenticity, not through status or money. Daniel glanced at me, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes, and I knew I was doing the right thing. I had made a choice to, hopeful, embrace a new reality, one where I could stand by someone who deserved to be recognized for his talents, not overlooked because of his background. As the silence stretched on, a few of my friends shifted in their seats, and the hopeful atmosphere began to soften. "Okay, I guess if you vouch for him, he can sit with us," one of them finally said, breaking the tension. Daniel and I exchanged a glance, and I felt a happy sense of triumph wash over me. The rest of lunch was filled with awkward small talk, but there was a hopeful glimmer of hope in the air. As we laughed together, I realized that our bond was only beginning to take shape. This was just the start of a journey that would challenge me to confront my own biases while showing Daniel that he was more than just a background character in a world filled with privilege. I was confident, ready to embrace the challenge ahead, and I hoped Daniel was too. Together, we could change not just how we viewed each other, but perhaps even how our classmates saw the world around them. I smiled at him, and he returned the gesture, a romantic, silent agreement passing between us that our friendship would, hopeful, transcend barriers. If you enjoyed this journey into Serafina and Daniel's evolving relationship, consider subscribing to stay updated on their story and the lessons they learn along the way. As the weeks rolled on, a subtle transformation took root within me. I found myself seeking Daniel out more often, not just in the hallways of our school, but also in the small moments that punctuated my daily life. I had invited him to join me for lunch, an act that felt revolutionary, as if I were breaking free from an invisible chain that had bound me to the superficiality of my previous social circle. Our conversations were filled with happiness and unexpected depth, and I learned more about his family, his dreams, and the struggles he faced. Every story he shared peeled back layers of my ignorance, unveiling a world that had remained hidden behind the glossy facade of my privileged upbringing. One afternoon, as we sat beneath the sprawling oak tree in the park, Daniel spoke about his father, Henry, who toiled long hours as a mechanic just to keep their household afloat. I could sense the confident pride in his voice, mixed with an undercurrent of sadness. It was a stark contrast to the way my own mother, Margaret, flaunted her successes, often measuring worth by wealth and status. I could feel a knot of guilt tightening in my stomach. Here was a boy who understood the essence of hard work and sacrifice, while I had spent so much time focused on maintaining appearances and disgusted relationships. Sometimes I feel like people just see me as invisible, he confessed, staring at the ground, his voice barely above a whisper. I could see the vulnerability in his eyes, and it resonated with me in a way I had never anticipated. My mind drifted back to all the times I had overlooked him, dismissing his presence, as if he were nothing more than a shadow in the backdrop of my life. I wanted to assure him that he wasn't invisible to me, that I now recognized the strength that lay within him. "I see you, Daniel," I replied, my confident voice firm. "You're not invisible. You're more real than anyone I know." His expression shifted, a flicker of surprise dancing in his eyes, quickly followed by a hesitant smile. In that moment, I realized how easily we had fallen into our own roles, me as the wealthy girl preoccupied with trivial matters, and him as the quiet boy in the corner. It felt like we were hopefully building a bridge between our worlds, one that was anchored in honesty and understanding. Days turned into weeks, and our friendship blossomed. I began to notice the change in myself, a subtle yet profound shift that started to alter the way I viewed those around me. I made an effort to reach out to others, to connect with classmates I had previously ignored. With Daniel by my side, I realized that empathy and kindness didn't come with a price tag. It was liberating to step outside the bubble of wealth and social expectations I had lived in for so long. As I grew closer to Daniel, I found myself grappling with the complex relationship I had with my mother. Margaret had always encouraged me to be the best version of myself, but her definition of success felt increasingly misaligned with who I wanted to be. One evening, I confronted her about the nature of our lives, about the relentless pursuit of status and the way she often dismissed those less fortunate. Mom, do you ever think about how your choices affect others? About the people who struggle every day? I asked, my heart racing as I spoke. Her brow furrowed in confusion, and she replied, defensively, Serafina, you have to understand that appearances matter. In business, people respect success. I could see her angry, dismissive attitude reflected in her eyes, and stung. But success isn't just about money. It's about being a good person. It's about empathy and compassion. I, hopeful, insisted, hoping to ignite a spark of understanding in her. The conversation was tense, a stark contrast to the lightness I felt with Daniel. Margaret seemed unmoved, her focus fixed firmly on her career and the image she wanted to project. I realized that while our worlds were vastly different, I couldn't force her to see my newfound perspective. Instead, I decided to lead by example, hoping she might eventually understand through my actions. As I continued to spend time with Daniel, I was also drawn into the challenges he faced. One day, he confided in me that his father's job had become increasingly difficult due to cutbacks at the mechanic shop. I could sense the weight of worry in his voice as he spoke about the uncertainty of their financial future. It was heartbreaking to witness someone I cared for grapple with such heavy burdens. I wanted to help, to do something, but I was unsure how. Inspired by Daniel's strength and resilience, I organized a small fundraiser at school. My initial idea was simple, a bake sale where the proceeds would go towards supporting local families in need. It was a way for me to channel my privilege into something meaningful. As I shared my plan with Daniel, his surprise quickly morphed into enthusiasm, and together we rallied our classmates. What started as a simple idea blossomed into something larger as students from different cliques began to unite for a common cause. On the day of the bake sale, I felt a rush of excitement as we set up our tables decorated with colorful banners and delicious treats. The energy in the air was palpable, and I could see students who typically ignored each other laughing and bonding over cookies and brownies. It was a testament to how simple acts of kindness could bridge gaps that seemed insurmountable. Amidst the chaos, I spotted Daniel, his confident eyes shining with pride as he helped organize the crowd. In that moment, it became clear. We were more than just a rich girl and a poor boy. We were allies in a hopeful shared mission to foster compassion and connection. As the day progressed, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I had come. My friendship with Daniel had opened my eyes to a world brimming with complexity and depth. I felt a happy newfound sense of purpose, one that transcended wealth and privilege. And I realized that my journey was just beginning. Each day brought new challenges and discoveries, but I was confident, no longer afraid to face them. Together with Daniel, I felt confident, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, knowing that our bond was strong enough to withstand the trials of our disparate worlds. The days following the accident felt like an awakening. I no longer glided through life wrapped in the safety of my privilege. I moved with purpose and intention. As I walked the familiar hallways of our school, they appeared different, less like a runway for the elite and more like a shared space where everyone had a story. My conversations with Daniel became the highlights of my day, each one revealing another layer of his character that I had previously overlooked. He was so much more than just a quiet boy in the back of the classroom. He possessed a hopeful wisdom that spoke volumes about resilience and hope. One afternoon, as we sat together beneath a sprawling oak tree in the park, I noticed how the sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting playful shadows on the ground. Daniel was animatedly talking about his dreams of becoming a mechanic, just like his father. I marveled at how passionate he was, his eyes lighting up with each word. I want to fix things, not just cars, but also help people understand that they don't have to feel broken, he said, and I felt a stirring in my chest. It was such a simple yet profound ambition, one that resonated with my own desire to mend the rifts in my life. I began to share my own dreams, which I had buried beneath layers of expectation. I've always been told I should follow in my mother's footsteps and take over the family business. But there's a part of me that wants to do something entirely different, I admitted, my nervous voice barely above a whisper. Daniel looked at me with encouragement, his supportive gaze giving me the confident courage to continue. I spoke of hopeful, wanting to create a community center for underprivileged kids, a place where they could learn and grow away from the harsh realities of their lives. The idea had been lurking at the back of my mind, but I had never voiced it until now. As I grew more comfortable expressing my dreams, I noticed how Daniel's enthusiasm bolstered my own. We spent hours brainstorming, allowing our imaginations to take flight. It was exhilarating and liberating, far from the disgusted conversations I had once had with my so-called friends. Here, in this moment, I felt authentic, and I was grateful for Daniel's companionship, which had become a hopeful beacon of light in my life. However, my reality was a stark contrast to Daniel's world. I could sense the lingering doubts creeping in, especially when I was home. My mother, Margaret, seemed to be oblivious to the changes I was undergoing. She was preoccupied with her business and maintaining our family's image, leaving little room for any meaningful conversation. One evening, while I was trying to explain my desire to create the center, she dismissed my ideas with a wave of her hand. "That sounds nice, Serafina, but you need to focus on your responsibilities. We have a reputation to uphold," she remarked, her tone dripping with condescension. Frustration bubbled within me. I was tired of the notion that success equated to wealth or status. My hopeful heart was telling me to forge a different path, one where I could genuinely make a difference. But could I stand up to my mother? The thought was daunting. I felt sad, torn between the life she had envisioned for me and the one I longed to create alongside Daniel. In the following days, I made it a point to engage more with Daniel, finding solace in his perspective. One Saturday, I invited him to my house, hoping to bridge the gap between our worlds. To my surprise, he agreed, though I could see the hint of apprehension in his eyes. As we entered the lavish rooms of my home, I sensed his discomfort. I realized how starkly different our environments were. Yet I wanted him to see that my life wasn't just about the opulence that surrounded me. I showed him my art collection, not out of pride, but to share a part of myself. "This one's my favorite," I said, pointing to a painting of a bustling city. "It reminds me of the energy and potential we have in our lives." Daniel nodded, but I could tell he was still grappling with the disparity between us. "I struggle to articulate it without sounding condescending. After a while, we settled on the porch, surrounded by the garden meticulously cared for by my family. Serafina, I appreciate you inviting me over, he started, his nervous voice tentative, but sometimes I feel like I don't belong in this world. The honesty in his words surprised me. Here was this incredible person feeling out of place in my home, while I felt the same when I was in the company of my peers. It was an unsettling realization that our struggles, although different, had a common thread. Determined to bridge that gap, I replied, "You belong here as much as I do. We both have our challenges, and I want to support you. Let's make that community center a reality together. I believe it's possible." His expression softened, and I could see the hopeful flicker of hope in his eyes, a reminder that change was attainable if we dared to pursue it together. As the weeks turned into months, our friendship grew stronger, defined by shared dreams and mutual support. With every brainstorming session and every plan we crafted, I felt myself shedding layers of my old self. I was no longer just Serafina, the girl from a wealthy family. I was a co-creator of something meaningful alongside Daniel, who had become my greatest ally. Together, we began to formulate a vision for the center, pulling in ideas from other classmates who shared our goals. Slowly, I began to understand that true wealth lies not in possessions, but in the bonds we form and the impact we make. The journey was just beginning, and with Daniel by my side, I felt ready to confront any obstacles that might come our way. As the days passed, our shared vision for the community center began to take shape. Daniel and I spent countless afternoons huddled over notebooks, sketching plans and brainstorming programs that could uplift those around us. It felt electrifying, this sense of purpose that coursed through me. I was no longer just a wealthy girl floating through life. I was becoming an agent of change, and it was thrilling to see Daniel's passion for helping others ignite my own. Each time we met, I was reminded of how much I had underestimated him. His insights were sharp, his ideas fresh, and more importantly, he saw the world through a lens I had never considered. One afternoon, as we were fine-tuning our proposal for the center, I noticed Daniel's face cloud with concern. "Serafina, do you ever wonder if this is really going to make a difference? I mean, what if we fail?" His voice was tinged with a sad vulnerability that tugged at my heart. I took a moment to absorb his words. His fears mirrored my own, but I realized it was vital that I reassure him. "Even if we just help one person, it's worth it, isn't it?" I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Daniel nodded slowly, a hopeful flicker of hope crossing his face, and I could see that my words offered him a small comfort. As we continued refining our plans, I found myself thinking more about the people in our community. I had spent so much time in my bubble, surrounded by my mother's expectations and my social circle's disgusted trivial concerns, that I had completely overlooked the struggles of those less fortunate. The accident had shaken me awake in so many ways, forcing me to question everything I had taken for granted. I began visiting local neighborhoods, talking to families and listening to their stories. Each conversation chipped away at the walls I had built around my heart. One Saturday, Daniel and I visited a nearby housing project to gather input from the residents. I was nervous as we approached a group of children playing outside. I felt out of place, the bright colors of my designer clothes stark against the faded walls of their homes. Daniel noticed my hesitation and placed a reassuring hand on my back. "Just be yourself. They'll appreciate that," he whispered. Drawing strength from his confidence, I approached the group with a tentative smile. To my surprise, the children were curious rather than judgmental. They asked us questions about our project, their eyes lighting up at the prospect of a safe space where they could play and learn. Their enthusiasm was infectious, and as we spoke, I could see the impact we could have on their lives. We stayed for hours, laughing and playing games, and I began to feel a deep sense of connection to them that I had never experienced before. Each smile exchanged, every laugh shared, felt like a thread weaving us together in a way that transcended our differences. But with this newfound connection came a realization that weighed heavily on me. My mother was still primarily focused on appearances and status. During one of our phone calls, she casually mentioned a charity gala she was planning. "You should come with me, Serafina. It'll be a great way to network and meet influential people," she said, her voice dripping with excitement. I was taken aback by her casual dismissal of the real issues in our community. "Mom, I can't. I have other commitments," I insisted. Knowing that she wouldn't understand the depth of what I had found in my work with Daniel. The disappointment in her voice was palpable. "You have to learn how to navigate these situations, darling. It's important for your future." Her fearful words felt like a tether trying to pull me back into a world I, disgusted, wanted to inhabit. I realized that as much as I loved my mother, I had to carve my own path, one that reflected my values rather than her expectations. I confided in Daniel about my struggle. We were sitting on a park bench after another productive brainstorming session when I finally shared my fears. Sometimes I feel torn between who my mom wants me to be and who I'm starting to become. I want to make a difference, but it feels like I'm going against everything I've been taught, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Daniel listened intently, his gentle expression sympathetic. "You're not alone in that. Everyone faces pressure to conform, but it's about staying true to yourself. You have a unique voice. Use it." His words resonated deeply with me. I recognized that our partnership was more than just about the community center. It was about finding our own identities and asserting our values. Inspired by his encouragement, I decided to take a stand. I organized a meeting with my mother to discuss my project, hoping to bridge the gap between our worlds. When the day arrived, I felt a mixture of anxiety and determination. Margaret listened as I explained our vision, highlighting the importance of creating a place where children could thrive. I poured my heart into the presentation, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of understanding in her eyes. "It sounds noble, Serafina, but you have to think practically. We can't just throw money at the issue," she cautioned. This time, however, I, confident, stood firm. "Mom, it's not just about money, it's about people. They need someone to believe in them." The conversation was tense, each word carefully chosen, but I felt confident in a way I had never expected. I was advocating for something real, something that mattered. As I left the meeting, my heart raced with the mixture of fear and hope. I knew it was just the beginning of a long journey, but I felt a new sense of clarity and purpose. Daniel and I were on the right path, and together we could face whatever challenges came our way. The world was bigger than the confines of privilege, and I was confident to embrace it. In the end, I realized that change begins with us, and I hoped that sharing my story could inspire others to step outside their comfort zones. If you have your own experiences of overcoming challenges or learning from unlikely friendships, I invite you to share them. Let's continue this journey together. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself drifting into a new routine that felt foreign yet exhilarating. After that fateful day, I often thought about Daniel. The way he had rushed into danger without hesitation haunted me in a strange, beautiful way. It wasn't just that he had saved my life. It was the courage he displayed and the way he carried himself with quiet dignity. I began to notice him in class, catching glimpses of his thoughtful expressions as he worked through problems, his brow furrowed in concentration. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had overlooked someone extraordinary. Determined to bridge the chasm between our worlds, I started seeking him out. I would find moments to talk to him after class, asking questions about assignments, or chatting casually about the weather. My heart raced with each interaction, and I felt a happy warmth when he smiled back, his eyes lighting up with surprise. I discovered he had a passion for art, sketching in his notebooks during breaks, and that revelation made my heart ache with longing to know him better. We were so different, yet there was an invisible thread drawing us together. Margaret, my mother, remained oblivious to my shift in focus. She was consumed with her business and her image, constantly reinforcing the notion that appearances mattered above all else. One evening, while we were having dinner, she began discussing plans for an upcoming charity gala. "It's vital that we present ourselves well, Serafina. People remember how they perceive you," she said, her serious tone unwavering. I could feel my stomach twist. Her words felt hollow in the wake of my recent realizations. I wanted to scream that what truly mattered was kindness, authenticity, and the connections we forged with one another. Instead, I nodded and forced a smile, the weight of the evening pressing down on me. As the gala approached, the nervous mounted. My friends, who had once been the center of my universe, buzzed around me, discussing dresses and hairstyles. I felt like I was trapped in a bubble that was slowly suffocating me. Their conversations felt disgusted, revolving around the latest trends and who would be attending. I didn't want to be part of that world anymore, but I also feared the consequences of stepping away. I didn't want to disappoint my mother or lose the friendships I had built over the years. Yet a small voice inside me whispered that true friendships didn't require such sacrifices. The night of the gala arrived, and I donned a stunning gown that sparkled like stars in the dark. Margaret had insisted on it, claiming it was essential for making a statement. As we entered the grand venue, I was awash in a sea of glitz and glamour. The chandeliers twinkled overhead, casting shadows that danced along the walls. I could hear laughter and chatter all around me, but my heart felt heavy. I scanned the room, my hopeful eyes searching for someone familiar, someone who made me feel alive. My gaze landed on Daniel, who stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, his features contrasting sharply with the opulence surrounding us. He was wearing a simple shirt and trousers, looking both out of place and completely himself. My pulse quickened as I approached him, my nerves bubbling up inside me. "Daniel?" I called softly, and his surprised eyes widened in surprise. I could see a nervous flicker of uncertainty cross his face, and in that moment, I was reminded of the gulf between our worlds. "I'm so glad you came," I continued, my confident voice steadying as I stood beside him. "Thanks for inviting me, Serafina," he replied, his tone sincere yet nervous. "I didn't think I would be welcome here." I shook my head. Of course you are. You belong here just as much as anyone else. I gestured toward the crowd, my heart racing as I took a step closer. This place is just a facade, Daniel. It's what's inside that truly counts. His expression softened, and for a moment I felt the weight of our shared silence. I appreciate that, but this isn't my world. I wouldn't know how to fit in, he said, looking down at his feet. Then let's create our own space, I suggested, emboldened by my resolve. We can be ourselves, here and now. With hesitant smiles, we made our way through the crowded room, moving past the groups of laughing friends and networking adults. As we talked, I found myself sharing stories I had never shared before, speaking about my struggles with expectations and my hopeful desire to find meaning in my life beyond my privilege. I was struck by the way Daniel listened, his romantic eyes focused on me, filled with understanding. He spoke of his dreams, of wanting to become an artist despite the challenges he faced. And I felt a romantic connection that transcended the differences in our backgrounds. As the evening wore on, I noticed the envious glances from my friends as they observed our interaction. I could almost hear the sad whispers behind my back, questioning my choice to befriend someone like Daniel. But instead of feeling ashamed, I felt empowered. I was no longer just Serena, the rich girl. I was a person discovering the value of authenticity and connection. The energetic weight of societal expectations began to lift, and I realized I was confident, ready to embrace whatever came next. In that moment, surrounded by a swirl of extravagant dresses and disgusted artificial laughter, I understood that true wealth lay not in possessions, but in the bonds we forge with those who truly see us. Daniel was no longer invisible to me. He was a hopeful mirror reflecting the person I wanted to become. With each shared laugh and whispered dream, I felt the energetic barriers of my past begin to crumble. The journey had just begun, but I was confident, ready to embrace it wholeheartedly, step by step, alongside him.